All right, first you're going to go to the internet. You're going to go to clemson.box.com and you're going to pull up your PDF full text of your articles. It's good to have them in a common location and so that each group member can access them, but also just so you don't have to look for them each time, because that can be time consuming. I have my information saved from Clemson on my personal laptop. You might have to put yours in, but just hit login. It's going slow, I'm sorry. Gave me an error message of some sort. I'm just going to start over. See if that helps. I typed box.clemson.com, but it's clemson.box.com. Sorry about that. I have my login information for Box saved, so I'm just going to hit continue since I'm part of Clemson University. Okay, now I'm going to navigate to the folder where I have saved my full text articles. Mine is professional writing because that's the name of our course. Then self-mediated literature review because it's for our lit review. And then article PDFs. I'm going to go to the first one that was included, which was Adkins and Gavin's. And I'm going to scroll through first and count the number of graphs or charts that I see in this article, because I'm going to have to complete the DigitizeIT process with each chart or graph in each article. So there could be more than one. This would be one. Rows, number of words. Dentist number of words, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Because in this article they were measuring story quality, essential elements included, and then also number of words. So we have to have a graph for each of those. So I'm going to be making 9 runs on DigitizeIT for this one article, which is a lot. Hopefully they won't all be like that, but it just depends on how many graphs are in your articles are included. Once I have counted the number of graphs, just so I'm aware, I'm going to put it on the first graph, which was rows, number of words. I'm just going to position my screen so that that's on top. Next, I'm going to go to DigitizeIT and I'm going to open that. Okay, once you're in DigitizeIT, the first thing you're going to do is take a screenshot of your article PDF. To do that, you're going to go to Edit, Capture Screenshot. Since that article is open behind my DigitizeIT, that is what it captured the screenshot of. So you can zoom in or zoom out. I'm going to zoom in for rows because that's going to make it easier for me to complete the process. So I just want to look at this, rows, and it is the number of words that she used or read. And for purposes of the study, I'm only looking at baseline and then how much she increased after the instruction was given. I'm not trying to include these generalization and maintenance points because I'm just interested in the intervention effects. So the next step is that you're going to have to set your X minimum. That's your x-axis, which runs from left to right. So the smallest or the lowest point on my x-axis seems to be 1. So I'm going to set that x minimum as 1. Now I'm going to go here to x maximum. And if it helps to think of it, the x minimum, which is a minimum means, less, points to the left, and maximum points to the right. So the maximum for the x-axis is 6 because, again, I'm not concerned with generalization and maintenance in this case. And you see it should draw a line for your axis. If it doesn't, you need to try it again. Now I'm going to go to my y minimum. Minimum's pointing down. The y-axis runs up and down. The smallest point on my y looks to be 5. I'm not exactly sure though, so just to be safe, I'm going to set my y minimum at 0. You rather set your parameters too broad than to exclude a data point. Now I'm going to go to set y maximum. This one looks like it's about 85, but just to be safe, I'm going to set my y max at 90. And you can see over here that I've got my range. It put in all of this, the x range and the y range. So you need to make sure that it draws a line here as well. Now that I've done that, I'm going to take points manually, because if I try to take points automatically, it's going to automatically try to do these points and these points down here, which would not be what I want. So I'm just going to select the points that I'd like in order. So there's the baseline, and there is the post instruction. So there should be 6 points altogether. Just try to center it as best you can. Now I'm going to come over here and make sure I have 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I clicked this last point twice. So to fix that, I clicked on this and clicked delete. Now I have 6 points. So that is correct. Now that you know that you have your data points over here, what I'm going to have to do is save my project. So I'm going to go to Save Project As. This is going to just save the actual graph with these points on it and with your axis drawn on it. So I'm going to navigate to the folder that I created, which was on the PowerPoint tutorial. It was called Graphs. So actually these are some graphs that I did before, and since I'm going to go through these in a video with you, I'm going to delete the graphs that I had. So the name of this article was Adkins and Gavin, and we decided we were going to name it, and it's 2012_1, because this is the first graph. There's 9, remember, so you need to remember that each time you're saving. And this is just so the person checking behind you for reliability can be able to look at your graph to make sure they agree that you had 6 data points and that that was correct. So I'm just going to hit save. Okay, so that just saved the picture of this. Now I'm going to go to File and Export as CSV. That's going to export these data points right here, so that I can open them up in Excel, which is really going to be, you know, how we gather all of our data for the study. So we said before on the other PowerPoint that we were going to save this in a folder called Exported Data. And let me delete these since I'd already started them when we went over it in class, but make sure that it says Save as Type Data Points, but I'm going to call this Adkins and Gavin 2012_1. Okay, I'm just going to hit Save. All right, now I'm going to do a new one. I'm going to go to Dennis and do the next graph. As long as I know that this is still open back here, then that is going to work. I'm going to go to Edit, Capture Screenshot, and I've got a screenshot of the next graph, which is Dennis, number of words. So I'm going to zoom in on this and do the same thing. I'm going to set my X minimum, which looks to be at 1. That's left to right, remember X. And then I'm going to set my X maximum, which I'm going to have to scroll up here because I'm only interested in instruction, remember. So my X maximum here would end right here at 12. Okay, and it drew my X-axis line, so I'm good to go on to my Y minimum. My Y minimum, maybe between 3 and 5. The graph's kind of cut off right here, so I'm just going to set it at 0 to be safe, to make sure that all those points are included. And then the maximum looks to be about at 85 again, but I'm going to set, see, I messed this up. I'm trying to hit Y minimum, see, and I clicked up here actually, and I had already set my Y minimum down here. So I forgot to click over. You have to click up here to where it says Y maximum when you change it. Otherwise, you'll have to start over and rename your axis points. So it input the X and Y axis here. So now I'm going to just take my points manually in order. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, oh, that didn't click, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, now I'm going to save this picture of this graph, save project as, go to my DigitizeIT folder. Once you've saved it once, it's going to be easier to get to if you navigate to it up here. I'm going to Graphs, and I'm going to save this as Adkins and Gavin 2012_2 because this is my second graph. Now I'm going to export my CSV data. Same thing, go to DigitizeIT up here, Exported Data, and Adkins and Gavin 2012_2. So I've got 9 graphs to do, so still got a little bit to go. By the time I'm finished, you'll have had a lot of practice with watching this. I'm going to go to New. I'm going to make sure that my graph is still up. Here it is. So I'm going to go back to DigitizeIT and take another screenshot for my third data set. So I'm now going to look at John. And the further down you get, you're going to have to look back up here. The post instruction for John goes to about right here. So Just need to make sure that you include the right points and that you don't include this generalization and this maintenance for John. So I'm going to set my X minimum at 1, my X maximum at 18. Now I'm going to set my Y minimum. Again, it looks like it's about 0. It's not going to be less than 0 for the number of words, because you can't have a negative, they wouldn't have read a negative number of words. So I'm just going to put it at 0 to be safe. And his highest point actually looks like maybe it's about 60, so I'm just going to say 65. It's just an estimate. You'd rather your maximum be too high than too low, because if you make it too low, like let's say I made it 40 and there are 3 points above 40, then I would exclude those points from my results. Now I'm going to go to take points manually. I'm going to click on each point for John in order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, I don't like that one. Too far over. You want to try to get it as close to the middle as possible, because it's actually calculating coordinate based on where I'm clicking. So we want it to be pretty close to correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I've got 9. I'm going to export. Oh, I did it backwards this time. Hit export as CSV. It doesn't matter what order you do it, but this is my third graph. And I'm also going to save a picture of this in my graphs folder. It's important that you save it the way that I showed you how to save it, because if we're all saving them the same way, it's going to be easy for someone to go behind you and check and access that information. Okay, now I'm going to go to my article, which I'm still on Clemson.box.com here, and I'm going to navigate to the next graph because I've got to do a screenshot there. So I'm going to new, because I'm starting a new graph. I'm going to go to edit, capture screenshot. It's going to capture a screenshot. I'm going to zoom in on this first one, which is rows. Again, I only want baseline and post instruction. I'm going to set my X minimum. My X maximum. Then my Y minimum, which seems to be 1, because it goes down. See, this is the lowest point, is aligned with the 1 here. And then my Y maximum, which seems to be 7. Okay. Got my axis information defined. So now I'm going to go to data and take points manually and do the same thing. Where this will get really tricky is when you've got multiple lines on one graph. It's going to make it harder to extract the data and going to make the reliability and the checking behind each other that much more important. So I'm going to go to Save Project As to save the picture of the graph. And I'm on the 4th picture. Now I'm going to export my data. If you know you're going to have a bunch of them like this, If you copy and paste the article title, and the underscore like this, and hit Control C, and then you'll have it for next time. Okay, I'm going to go here and make sure that it's showing Dennis, because I'm going to do his next, and I'm going to go to New, and I'm going to take a screenshot of this again. Okay, I'm going to zoom in on Dennis. Identify my access information. And you can hit enter instead of having to click on it each time once you're finished. Okay, I messed this up because I didn't go to Y maximum, so I'm going to have to start over. I have to do my Y minimum again, which was 2, and then you have to make sure you click each time or you'll have to redo it because it won't define your access points. So now I'm going to go to Data, take points manually, and the more you do, the faster you'll get, it seems, because I feel like I can do them pretty quickly. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points, which is correct. You can also hit save right here. So this is going to save the picture of my graph. And this is my 5th graph, so I just hit Control V because I had copied that the author's name and date and the underscore earlier. Now I'm going to export my data. You just have to make sure you go to the right folder each time. It's very tedious, I guess, if you're not used to saving and creating folders and all that. So now I'm going to navigate here and make sure that I am on John. Now I'm going to take a screenshot, edit, capture screenshot. I'm going to go to digitize it. Okay, I've got John here. I'm going to zoom in because that just makes it a little easier to highlight your points to focus on this one graph. Okay, John's baseline was here, and then his intervention ended here because this is the generalization and maintenance, remember? So even though I can't see the top where it says that, you have to make sure that you still adhere to that. Looks like his lowest point was at 0. Oh, see what I did? I put my X max here, or my X minimum here, and that's my Y minimum. So I'm going to start over. I'm getting ahead of myself. His X minimum, his lowest point on the X-axis from left to right is a 1. And then on the, this thing keeps popping up. On his X maximum would be his furthest point, which is 18. Oh. I drew the line. Now I'm going here and I'm going to put in my Y minimum as 0, my Y maximum as 7. Now I'm going to go to Data, take points manually. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, And sometimes you click it more than once and it doesn't work. You have to make sure you do it again, or you'll have to go back and do them if they're not in order. Out of the corner of my eye, I can see it add a data point over here. So that's what I want. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And if you're checking behind the person that's created these graphs, you want to make sure that the data points are correct, that they have the right number of points. Now I'm going to save this graph. This is graph 6, so I'm going to save it as _6. Export my data. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the 7th. Oops. Accidentally opened a new copy of DigitizeIT. I'm going to move on to the 7th graph. Almost done. I have to celebrate when I'm done with this one. I can see why Mickey suggested you only do one of these a day sometimes. Okay, look at what I've got here. I messed up somehow. It says not saved. I don't know why it says that. So I'm just hit the little save button again because I noticed up here it had said not saved. So I'm going to go to new, which I think must be what I didn't do. I was trying to just go on top of my old. That's a good thing. Let me show you that. Actually, I'm going to open a graph that I've already done. So I think that maybe I messed this one up. Yeah, I'd added those points to it. So since I'm not sure, and I think I might have messed up this data, I just click this X to delete all points, and I'm going to redo them because you want to make sure they're in order. If they're not, you could really screw yourself up. So I'm going to just take these points again for graph 6, which means I'm also going to have to re-export the data for number 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, see how that one, you can hit Control-Z, the shortcuts work. For a Mac, I'm not sure what the shortcut buttons are, but Control-Z on a PC is the undo button. You can also hit this arrow here. But I've got my points now. So I'm going to save this. I'd already saved it, so I'm just going to hit the save button. I don't have to go to save as again, but I am going to re-export my data just to make sure that I didn't mess it up. So I'm just going to name it as this was my 6th graph. Okay, so let's say I forgot to go to File and New, and I was trying to just go from here and do my next graph, because someone asked Friday if that was possible. So let's say I go to Edit and Capture Screenshot. It's still got, you can see I captured a new screenshot, but here's my data from the previous graph. So if I take manual points on here, that's gonna all kinds of mess up my data, because I'm gonna actually have 2 things on one, but not even have the old graph anymore. So that's why you can't do that. I just hit undo and I'm gonna save it. So you have to go to new every time and capture a new screenshot. And you will get faster at it because you're going to do a bunch of these. I think one of the lit reviews I was looking at said that they did 66 of them, so it just depends on how many articles you have included and how many graphs each article has. So I'm just going to go my X minimum, and I almost forgot to change it to X maximum, which is 6. Because again, I'm not doing generalization or maintenance. You can include that in your coding, that they included that information, and in your discussion. But as far as data points, I'm not interested in that. Okay. Take points manually. Let me show you this. Let's say you want to do it automatically. You can try to. Doesn't always work, especially since I don't want those last 2 points, but you would go to auto and find symbols. And then you're going to click on what the first symbol looks like, just so the program knows, okay, you're looking for the dots. And see how it did those in order? But see how it also did all of these down here? So if you wanted to do it that way, you would have to go through and unclick each point that you do not want, which is probably more time consuming than it's worth. And then you're going to have to worry about whether or not your points remained in order. So while the automatic version would be wonderful and sounds great, and I wish we could use it, I'm not sure it's going to be very useful to us for our purpose. So you can look, I've got like 1, 1, 2, about 2, 1. So I've got my first point looks correct, but then my next point is 5, 6. So the next point it automatically did was this one. So they're not in order at all. So I know that that's not going to work. So you can go to here and click delete all. That'll just delete all your points, so then I can go back and take my points manually. And each article is going to have some different styles of graphs, so you might come across one that is confusing or, different than one that we did a tutorial with. If that happens, you can send me the article and I can try to do a tutorial for you, if that would help, and post it to YouTube. I've created a YouTube channel where I hope to upload these videos for you guys to watch, and anyone else that has trouble with DigitizeIT maybe can watch, because there's very little out there to help with the program. There's not a whole lot of tutorials out there. So now I'm going on to my eighth article. I'm feeling like I'm going to have a party and celebrate when I'm finished, because I feel like this takes so long. You can also go to your axis lines up here. So, and actually, I'm glad I clicked on this. You can delete your axes here if you accidentally put in the wrong thing, but make sure that linear is highlighted, because we want to deal with linear and going in a straight line. We're not doing any of the logarithmic or the inverse. And I've almost clicked on rows, but I actually need to do Dennis. His X minimum is 1. and his X maximum is 12. And if you notice the trend for every graph I've done for Dennis, and oh, and I forgot to click it to X maximum, so I'm going to have to redo that point. Dennis's x-axis was the same for each of his graphs, so that might help you. If you have a good memory, you might remember what his was, but just always try to look at the data points and make sure, just to double check. It doesn't take much longer. It's an already time-consuming process, so might as well get it right the first time. See what I did again? I did not do my X minimum. I did not move it from X minimum to X maximum. So I'm going to have to redo that. I do that a lot, it seems like. So now that I've got those set, I'm just going to take my points for Dennis for his last intervention phase. I'm going to undo that point because I don't think it was close enough to the middle. Okay, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points. And Dennis had 8 points for his others, but it could vary. You know, the kid might not have measured one intervention one day, and he might have been absent or left early, so those may not always be the same, and the points may not always be the same, but in this case they are. This is my 8th graph, my 8th data set. Now I'm going to go on to my 9th. Yay, I'm almost done. I'm going to make sure my screenshot's lined up to do John's. So it is. So I'm going to go back here, edit, capture screenshot. It captures it. And it automatically takes me back to DigitizeIT. I don't have to do anything else, like move back to DigitizeIT from. I've just got to make sure I include this whole graph. X minimum is 1. Looks to be about 18. I'm going to put my point here though and say 19 just to be safe. Oh, and I forgot to actually change it to X max before I did that. So, and you notice how I put 19, but 19 actually was here. Y minimum, and my Y maximum looks like it's about 4. Actually, I'm going to say 6 just to be safe. Okay, and it's got my X and my Y here. Data, take points. Always go in order, remember. Once we get into Excel, I will show you how to round so that you have no decimal places, because we do not want these points as decimals, because we're actually extracting the data. Like, even though you might look at this and say, oh, that's 1, 1, actually where I put this green mark is where it's taking the data from. So it's saying 1.01 and 0.933. So since we know that on the first day, you know, John did this and was at a 1 for his quality of stories, we know we're not going to have a decimal, because you can't have a, you know, a repeating decimal for your story quality. Usually it's just you know, you get an extra point, or you get a point, or you don't. So now I'm going to save this project as graph 9. I forgot to go here. I'm going to export this data. You can scroll through here if you want to and make sure you've got all of them. Okay, I'm going to do a new video now, so be sure to watch it on what to do with your data once you've saved everything.